There. Now you know.
I'm sorry.
It's just war. Unknown. Age of paranoia est. No matter what happens, we don't make it past here. Then we die in a pile of expended brass and enemy corpses. Unknown. Age of paranoia est. It broke my back and I can't see out my left side. I'm never going to be pretty again, am I? You're pretty now. I'll pull this pin and do us both. Ready. Steady. I love why. Unknown. Age of paranoia est. The hovercraft was escorted by 4 Stingwing-class aerospace fighters. It circled the lavish palace grounds twice, concealed air defense systems tracking its every movement. Finally, it set down on the brightly lit landing pad, surrounded by palace guard in power armor. 2 figures got out, one a small male, the other a large female, both wearing plain and simple clothing, escorted by nearly a dozen heavily armored and hard-plate armored troops. The pair submitted to a quick pat-down and a scanner sweep from one of the power-armored troops, then moved with the others to the back of the palace. Inside, they were led down long hallways, the power-armor troops making the slow, deliberate, and clumsy movements that nobody had ever managed to figure out how to eliminate. The hallways were full of the hiss and thump of hydraulics, the whir of heavy gear motors, and the clanking of hidden chains as the power armor moved. The group passed through scanners repeatedly that all started wailing as soon as they stepped in. The male had unidentified cybernetics and bioware organs and tissue in his head, down his spine, on his palms. The female was shot through with enhancements. Her bones were laced with a flexible lattice, her cartilage the same. She had cyberware in her brain, her chest, her arms, her hands, her eyes. Organs had been modified and 3 added. Each time a functionary in lavish dress pressed the override and the pair moved through the palace. Finally, they came to a simple door. The functionary knocked 3 times, and when permission was given, escorted the pair inside, leaving the escorts outside the door. Inside was lavishly decorated, if comfortable. 2 desks sat at an angle, the occupant of the desk backed into the corner, the desk at a 45-degree angle. Both wore tastefully understated crowns. One was a large female, the other a smaller male, both dressed in expensive clothing and adorned with jewelry. There were 2 chairs in front of the desks. The female noted that there was no plastic under the chairs. Both knelt in front of the desks, male to male, female to female. "You may rise," the female said. The male set his chin in his hand, watching with interested eyes. "Sit," the female at the desk commanded. The male and the female sat, the male looking awed, the female with an air of wary tightness. "Our seneschals have informed us of your statements," the female said, taking the lead. She tapped a piece of smart-plus paper. "Your abduction, your trials and tribulations in what the fallen Confederacy calls the Clownface Nebula, what you suffered at the hands of this so-called detainee afterwards, and how you were released." "Yes, Your Majesty," the male said, his voice a respectful whisper. "My guards are much put out with me," the bejeweled male said, expressing amusement. "My advisers have told me it would take anti-armor weaponry and possibly a full brigade of troops in power armor to stop you. Should you mean me and my sister ill, senior agent Liu," the Empress said. The female, Liu, expressed embarrassment, ducking her head slightly. "We felt if you meant us harm, all that the amount of power armor-clad troops we could stuff in this office would do is slow you down, and that would be due to the time it took you to clear enough space for full movement," the Empress said. The female's ears flushed. "Was it painful?" the Empress asked. The female nodded. "I could hear her scream as I was tested," the male said. "That sounds frightening, Senior Experimenter Hreckel," the Empress said softly. "I could hear him scream when he disappointed the matron of the damned, or she felt that he was not applying himself and not living up to her expectations," Lu said, still looking down. We could hear the others scream at times. At times, we had to nurse them back to health, only for them to be subjected to her ministrations again, Freckles said. Or, for those of us who were soldiers, when we were turned over to her sons, Lu said. She looked up. They were terrors. She looked down. Terrors took a soldier from 2 of our 3 nations and rebuilt us, retrained us, hammered us into pale reflections of them. The Empress nodded. The Emperor looked thoughtful for a moment as the Empress spoke. The terrors have been gone for over 35,000 years. If they returned today, based on what you went through, could they stand against our empire? The Empress asked. Lu looked down again. We would be wheat before the scythe. The Emperor frowned. We are the rising star of the galactic spur. They are an ancient and forgotten race. Are they really that much of a threat? Lu nodded, still staring at the floor. In ways you cannot imagine, Your Majesty. The Empress looked at Freckle. And their science, their technology, what you have demonstrated is indeed impressive. How would their technology stack up against ours? They are doing magic while we bang rocks together and laugh at the sound, Your Majesty, Freckles said. He looked at Lu, then reached over and touched a knee, rubbing it gently. Your Majesty, we were taken, through the matron of the damned dark science, to places beyond our understanding. We were subjected to things we can barely describe, then returned as if we had been pair-bonded and living together for years. He took back at the Empress, without anyone in the Empire's knowledge or understanding of how. Matter transmission, matter to energy and energy to matter, matter rearrangement at a subatomic level, superluminal communication, overcoming the laws of thermodynamics. All of this was trivial to the mother of dark science. He looked at the Emperor. One thing, Your Majesty, is something that she mentioned offhand, that the Empire needs to heed. While we are not accustomed to taking advice from those who are our lessors, what is this that the Empire, in its power, must heed? Terror technology is not advanced civilian technology researched for peaceful gains and then applied to warfare, but rather it is the science of warfare applied to other fields, Freckles said. One of the first questions a terror scientist asks themselves or is asked upon making a new discovery is the simple one of, how does this increase one's killing power? Nothing more, nothing less. She also knows, Lu suddenly said. Knows what? The Empress asked. Lu looked around, then faced the Empress again. That you intend on invading terror-restricted space with a massive fleet, intending on taking those worlds for yourself, and threatening the fallen Confederacy that you will planet crack them rather than surrender them. The Empress blinked in shock as the Emperor turned and stared at her. That plan was discarded, sister, the Emperor said carefully. By you, brother mine, the Empress said. She knows, Lu said. She knows, and there is something worse. What? The Empress snapped, turning from where she had locked gazes with the Emperor and started bruxing her back teeth. She thinks it's funny, Lu said. She stated that you have no idea what you will unleash, Freckles said. No idea what will happen because of something that is happening that you do not know. What? What is happening that would stop our careful preparations? The Emperor asked. She says, and I quote, the drawstring of the bag is loosening and will soon come undone, Freckles said. Lu leaned against Freckles' shoulder, sighing. Freckle reached up and began combing the fur on the side of her neck with his claws. They were sitting on the outside patio of the small domicile they had been assigned so that they were available to the imperial rulers at any time. Do you think they will listen? Lu asked. Freckle shook his head. No. What do you think will happen? Lu asked. Freckle looked up, at the stars in the sky and the dusty streak of the center of the galaxy. The stars will burn, he said softly. The airlock shut silently, and the spacesuit figure fell to their hands and knees. Pressurized gas was injected into the small chamber, making the glass go frosty as moisture in the system adhered to the armor glass. After a moment the airlock beeped and the interior door slid aside. The spacesuit figure got to its feet and shambled into the space beyond, shutting the interior door behind them. They sat down on the bench for a long moment, putting their face shield against their gloves. They sat like that, their bodies shaking for a few minutes. Once the shakes subsided, the figure began stripping off the spacesuit. The wearer was a male Terran, clad only in a thin set of modesty underclothing. Their hair was black, shot through with grey, and they had a short grey and black bristles along their jaw. Their eyes were gunmetal grey as they looked at their hands for a long moment after they put up the gloves. Their hands were worn and calloused, wide and thick veins across the back of the palms, some looped over thick tendons. Once the suit was put away, they took the time to hook up the hoses to replenish the mass tank and the atmospheric tanks, to recharge the batteries, and to flush the microreactor. They then inspected it, tagging 2 small spots with a red marker to signify that those pieces would need further inspection and possible replacement. After that, then went into the next room, took off the modesty shorts, and took a quick shower. They stood for a little while under the harsh hot spray, one hand on the wall, the other at their side, as the pulsating jets sprayed their head. Once done, they went in and dressed in a zip-up coverall, dark blue with a patch on the left shoulder of a large hound's head with burning red eyes. From there, they moved through the ship, the lights coming on ahead of him and turning off behind him as he slowly made his way to the center of the ship. There, in the center, was a starship bridge, reworked so that it only required a single being to pilot it. A small box next to the large captain's chair suddenly gave a whistle and a jaunty tune. Treads popped out the bottom, thin spindly arms extended out, and a panel opened up so that shielded eyes could raise up. The shields clicked as the battered and dented robot blinked and stretched out its arms, clicking its graspers. "Morning to you too, Wally," the man said. He sat down and pressed a quick combination. The lights came on, 2.5D LCD screens lit up and began displaying data. The robot whistled and chirped. "No, we still can't get out," the man said. He tapped a few buttons and one screen came on, showing nothing but swirling burning white fire. "But I made some progress. More whistling." "Well, I think I can drop the whole system," the man said. The robot whistled some more. "Like everything regarding us humans, the solution is obvious once you realize it," the man said. He nodded at the white. "Even that, all that white matter, has an obvious solution." He tapped some keys. "It'll only take a few weeks to fab up what we need," the man said. The robot whistled. "Yeah, we can watch some more Charlie Moo Moo episodes," the man said. He looked down at the keypad and tapped another combination. The white fire vanished, to be replaced by dancing cartoon figures. "Once it's done being fabbed up, I'll solve the problem the old-fashioned way," the man said. The robot whistled curiously, not taking its lenses from the cartoon. "I'll just blow it all up," Herod said. "That'll rip open the bag."